The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Instructor Podcast. This is a show that for 5 years has helped you become an even more awesome driving instructor and run a better driving school. As always, I am your splendid host, Terry Cook. I'm delighted to be here, even more delighted that you have chosen to listen, because today we are talking about protecting young drivers, because I'm joined by the woman behind that campaign, Rebecca Morris, who launched the Protect Young Drivers website, and we're discussing the role that driving instructors can do and potentially should play within that. And you can find all the links we mentioned in today's episode in the show notes, where you can also find links for the WhatsApp channel and the email, so go and sign up to those. Now, in those show notes, you'll also find a link for the Instructor Performance and Psychology membership. That's where we've got hundreds of hours of content to help you become a more informed and confident driving instructor. It's specifically aimed at growth-minded instructors just like you. Now, there's a few ways you can sign up. For example, you can get a 16% discount on a 1-year membership, or you can get a week's free trial. So use the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com/the instructor. But for now, let's get stuck into the show. I'm delighted to be joined today by Rebecca Morris of Protect Young Drivers and Vision Zero Communication. How are we doing, Rebecca?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Terry. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you again.
I love having you on. I love talking to you. I think it's fascinating, and I think you offer a slightly different perspective as well from the psychologists, from some of the campaigners, from driving instructors, because your background is a lot of marketing and journalism. So I think it's fascinating talking to you. But we're talking today about Protect Young Drivers, but I want to speak about young drivers. What is the issue? How big is the issue with young drivers in the UK right now?
Yeah, we've got a continuing problem with young driver collisions, and many of those people who are being killed and injured in crashes caused by young drivers are not the young driver or the passenger. They're people not known to them who happen to be in another vehicle at the roadside walking as a pedestrian, as a cyclist, other road users who didn't know that young person. So it's a huge problem that we need to do something about. And it feels like we've known about these risks now for so long, for decades. And yet anything meaningful to reduce that has yet to happen.
The stat that always gets me is that the 1 in 5 crashes within a year after passing your test. And I'm curious, I kind of touched on at the beginning, I appreciate that you're not the psychologist, but what are your thoughts on the reasons why that many young people are involved in crashes?
I think when we think about crashes involving young people, we often think about young drivers doing something wrong. We assume, I think there's some kind of stereotypical assumption that, boy racers or people deliberately speeding or doing something reckless. But a lot of the time it is simply down to that inexperience. When you pass your test, I remember feeling absolutely terrified, really, because now I was in it on my own. And it was difficult enough being on my own driving and trying to get to grips with driving. I don't think I really carried many passengers at first. I don't seem to remember that, but that was probably because I did feel quite challenged. And it's something that, I wanted to concentrate on my own. And even then I struggled. I think that's it. I think a lot of collisions are involving young drivers are simply as a result of inexperience. And that's really sad, because that means we're not preparing them well enough for those vulnerable months when they've just passed their test. So no matter how much tuition or how many hours of learning they're getting, are we really giving them the skills to actually be safe and competent drivers when they are going off on their own, or whether they've got passengers or not, or whatever the time of day or whatever road they're on? Are they actually being equipped enough to be safe and keep themselves and other road users safe.
I'll ask you a question that might be slightly unfair. So I'm going to put some context behind it to begin with. Because a little while ago, I think I shared the crash statistics on LinkedIn, and I was talking about why the DVSA put their emphasis on the top 10 reasons people fail a driving test rather than the reasons people crash a car. I was talking about that, and a driving instructor popped up and he asked me to give a percentage of the fault that instructors take for crashing. Like, well, I can't give you a percentage, but for me, we have to take some responsibility for what happens post-test. We're all, I shouldn't say all, a lot of us are very quick to share the success stories. Here's my past picture, here's me, doing a motorway lesson, whatever. And we take pride when they do that. So I think that we need to take a bit of responsibility for everything that occurs post-test. So maybe this slightly unfair question, but I wanted to add that context is should instructors, are instructors responsible for, in any way, for what happens after a driving test?
I think at the moment, it's very difficult. I know there are lots and lots of passionate instructors out there who really want to make a difference, who don't see it as simply getting somebody through the test. They want to pass on as many skills and tools that someone can then take with them. But as far as I understand it, there isn't anything that's really stipulating what people cover and how they cover it. And there isn't anything there currently to stop people simply trying to get people through the test. And I think it's great to pass the test. I remember being absolutely elated when I passed my test. I still know what that feels like. And I'm a lot older now. I can still feel that lovely feeling of success and celebration. So no one's trying to take that away from a young driver or from the instructor. They should quite rightly, be very glad. But I think just when you were talking there, I was thinking success, but what does success look like? Is success passing the test, or is it knowing that you've done as much as you can do to create a safe road user of tomorrow, driver of tomorrow? And I think at the moment, perhaps there's quite a lot of disparity there. There's quite a lot of, it's all down to perhaps individuals, instructors' views on this and how much they get this problem and this issue and how much they see themselves as being part of this solution to reduce young driver risk and harm.
This is why I love talking to you. So I love that answer. And I think maybe you've shifted my perspective slightly because that question of what is success, and I can remember two quick stories. I had a pupil who passed second time, but a sister trained with someone else and passed first time. But the sister's training was very test centric. And when my pupil passed, she was traveling all over. For months afterwards, she sent me pictures of, this is me in Scotland, this is me here, because she's just driving all over. And it took something like a year for her sister to leave Bradford because she didn't know how to drive. She'd learn how to master a test. But a more personal one was one failure for me of what I view as a failure was again, two sisters. I taught the first one, she passed. I taught the second one, and she told me that the first sister that passed had been in a crash. Nothing serious as such, and I asked her about it, and it was turning left out of a cul-de-sac. There was nothing coming from the right, so she carried on quite promptly and just drove straight into a parked car. That had happened several times on lessons, not the crash, but that incident, that type of incident where I've had to step in and rectify it. And we'd never solved it. And it broke my heart. Nothing bad, it wasn't a horrendous result, but it's like I hadn't fixed this problem. And this was a demonstration of something that occurred as a result of me not fixing this problem. So when you ask what success looks like, it's like that to me is what failure looks like. And the success is the other pupil. But every instructor or every person is going to have their own definition. And for some, passing a test will be a success, which then doesn't necessarily lead towards safe driving. So I love that. But you also mentioned the word solution, a solution to this problem of young road death and young road harm, if you like. Well, you're coming up with a solution, or one of the solutions, which is protect young drivers. Tell me about Protect Young Drivers.
So, Protect Young Drivers is, or was, very simply a website idea, a hub of information, everything we've researched, projects that have taken place, evidence about young driver risk and about the solutions to reduce harm, all in one place. So lots and lots of stakeholders, police, fire, local authorities have been working hard over many years on young driver education projects and awareness raising and things like that. But it's all dotted around. It's all on different websites. It's all over the place. So this idea was to bring everything together into one place. So everything was up to date, consistent messaging, etc., which is what we did. And around a year ago, we launched Protect Young Drivers website. And after not too long, we'd got lots and lots of stakeholders signing up to become supporters. You know, who doesn't want to support the idea of protecting young drivers and reducing road harm caused by young driver crashes? Who doesn't want to commit to that, whatever that looks like? So we've just had people queuing really to support that. You know, we've got police and crime commissioners, we've got MPs, we've got fire officers, academics, charities, organisations right across the road safety world who have signed up, which is great. But what soon became evident from all of this was that actually these organisations and these individuals wanted a way of declaring this support, and not just declaring it in their own way. That's what had been going on in the past. You know, this particular Safer Roads partnership is doing this because it cares very much about reducing road harm. But what hadn't happened before is that organisations hadn't had a way of teaming up and joining forces on this very important issue that we all care so much about. So suddenly, almost overnight, the website presented itself as a bit more of a focal point of this is what we've all signed up to. This is what we want to do together, stakeholders across the board, working with bereaved families, standing with bereaved families to reduce this problem and to protect young drivers. So now it has become more like a movement. And I'm really pleased to say that movement is growing and broadening. And obviously, driving instructors are hugely important. They're arguably the most important stakeholder in this conversation. And we're delighted to be welcoming driving instructors in to this conversation and to be part of Protect Young Drivers with us, because we can't do this on our own. They can't solve this problem on their own. We can't solve it on our own. I mean, we're so removed. You know, Protect Young Drivers isn't an organisation. It's a name that brings together all of these organisations who are out there doing the day-to-day educating and supporting and protecting. So, and it's becoming quite a powerful thing, really. And if we do it right and we do it together, and together simply means communicating and sharing. And we now have steering group meetings. We've had our first steering group meeting. So many of those national stakeholders that are supporting us all meeting to talk about what we're planning, how we're going to respond to the consultation, the road safety strategy consultation, and the minimum learning period for drivers taking their tests. How we can make sure we're all saying the same things when we respond. And also planning for the future. What are we going to do together to tackle this issue? So what started as a simple website has now gone on to this platform, this mechanism for us all to collaborate, which is so powerful if we do this right.
Just on the name for a second, I think it's perfect, because when you think of road safety, you mentioned road safety, 99% of the population are going to switch off. It's boring. It's not interesting. Then you've got the Vision Zero phrase, which is used a lot, and correctly so, you know, but how many people argue with that idea of zero not being realistic? It's something we get. But protect young drivers, how can we argue with that? I think it's a brilliant name. Yeah.
It's exactly what it says everything, doesn't it? It says
Yeah.
everything. It says we need to protect young drivers. Young drivers need to be and deserve to be protected. And like you say, it says I need to be part of this because I want to protect young drivers. And there's not one instructor out there or one police officer or firefighter or anyone else in this whole space who's insurer. They're another group that we're wholeheartedly inviting into this because we are all in this. The insurers have a huge role to play in this. We all need to be talking and working together, and that is growing and developing all the time. But who doesn't want to do more to protect these people who are being involved in far more injury collisions than any other group? And it's something that we've sat back and sort of kind of tolerated for way too long, as if it's some kind of inevitable thing that's bound to happen. But if we look at any other area of life, do we do that about young people and our children? Do we do that? No, we do everything we can do to protect them. And even when you think about what they're learning at school, that puts that whole cultural acceptance into perspective. We've seen things like a rise in education around, quite rightly, internet safety and cyberbullying and all the things that we do that are a real risk. But it's as if we've sort of, pretty much every child is going to use the road to get to school twice a day, multiple roads, and in different traveling in loads of different ways. But yet it's as if we've sort of forgotten that we need to be educating our kids about that. Right under our nose, we've kind of forgotten. So we're waiting until our kids get to the stage where they're then becoming drivers because they want to get around and they want to be independent. And all that means getting a car. That they're actually getting any real education around road safety. And that's so wrong. I would say that our kids from, nursery age right up through their school years should be getting age appropriate education around road safety, which then eventually leads in to the time when you're starting to become a passenger or a driver yourself in a young, as a young person, you're learning to drive yourself. It feels very like we sort of missed all that and go straight into being a driver.
It's like you'll sit in the passenger seat from when you're a small child. You'll watch your parent drive and act and behave however they drive, act and behave. You'll learn to mimic that and then jump in a car with an instructor who's going to try and take that away from you, but potentially has 6 months to do that compared to your 17 years of life experience. But you spoke a couple of times there about working together, and you mentioned about like instructors and the role that we play as instructors. So how can instructors get involved in protecting drivers?
Well, we'd love to hear from instructors who would like to be part of this collaborative approach. The site, the movement is growing all the time, and we're coming up with new ways all the time that people can be part of this. But the first thing to do would be to reach out to me at Protect Young Drivers, and hopefully you can share some contact details. But if people go on to protectyoungdrivers.com/get involved, there are a few ways of getting involved. There are social media graphics. We don't have much at the moment and by way of resources, but we have some social media graphics. So if you're on social media as an instructor and you want to just demonstrate that you support this cause and you support this website and you support the need to protect young drivers, then you could do that by sharing these graphics. And some of them have just got some really, hard-hitting stats around how many young driver crashes there are. So again, if you just want to do some awareness raising of the issues, you can do that. They can all be downloaded from there. But it's growing all the time. And I think we'd like to see this site grow into a much wider resource with different sections on there. Parents, we really want to do, we need as a whole to do far more to educate parents about the risks facing young drivers. And I think there's a lot of talk about, we need a graduated driving licensing system. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's such a shame that we've seen it work so effectively in other countries across the world, and we haven't gone down that route in this country.
Hello, my name is Stuart Lochray. I'm the founder at Bright Coaching. Driving instruction has changed. Today's learners need more than just skills and practice and reps to pass a driving test. They need coaching that addresses the higher levels of the GDE on every single lesson. That's why we created the Professional Diploma in Coaching and Behavioural Change for Safe Driving. This accredited qualification, equivalent to a BTEC Professional Award Level 4-5, gives you the tools and recognition to transform the way you teach. With Bright Coaching, you can leave the DVSA behind and step into a modern, learner-focused approach, one that shifts the paradigm of driver education for instructors, for pupils, and for parents all across the country. At Bright Coaching, we are training the next generation of driving instructors. To check availability for our online cohorts and in-person cohorts, please visit the website at brightcoaching.net, and you can also sign up to our mailing list where you'll be informed of all the latest early bird discounts as they become available.
With standards checks due to return in 2026, ensure your success with KIT. Knowledgeable instructor training, the UK's most comprehensive instructor training provider. Whether you are looking for classroom-based workshops, in-car training, online webinars, or resources to explore in your own time, such as our ebook collections or our video hub for short videos that you can watch between lessons, make sure 2026 is a hit with KIT.
But I think it's not just the changes in the law that are important. And with any law change, with it, you're going to have a lot of proactive communication to go side by side with that. You can't just change the law and then expect everybody just to figure it out. You've got to tell people, and you've got to keep telling people that you're going to change it. Then you do change it, then you keep telling people that you've changed it. And not just you've changed it, but why you've changed it. So, for example, if we ever did have a graduated driving licensing system here, we would be telling people that the reason we need a graduated driving licensing system is that we have this huge disproportionate number of crashes being caused by this vulnerable group. And, we're seeing this many casualties, and we with introducing graduated driving licensing is likely to reduce it by this much. And that's why it's so important. And we'd be telling parents in that, and instructors and every other person out there, that is why. And people would then understand why and be accepting of why the law needed to change, because it's going to save lives. Obviously, you're never going to get support from everybody. I've seen some horrifying videos from the 1960s where they were interviewing people before the drink drive laws came in. And you had people saying, I'm not going to change. I'm perfectly safe after 5 pints to drive, and things like this. And it is almost laughable if it wasn't so serious. But to see it now, even that, there's always going to be people who are against these things. But a big part of it is that education that goes with it. So if there's one thing we can take from graduated driving licensing coming to Northern Ireland soon, which is amazing news, it's much closer to home than we've ever seen it. And I think one thing we can take from that is we can embrace some of that communication that's going to come from that. And we can ensure that kind of drifts across the sea, if you like, our way. It's closer than it's ever been. And parents and instructors and everybody else who's part of this will be hearing about why they're introducing graduated driving licensing. And if that affects and influences the way some people think and feel about this and see it as a problem for what it is, then that will be great.
I want to come back to graduated driving license in a second, but just going back to what we were saying initially around protect young drivers. the resources that you said there. So I've had a look at those, and there's I think, some really useful stuff for instructors there. It's free to download as well. And as you mentioned, links will be in the episode description. But you're someone that's got the history in marketing and communication and journalism. So I think one of the things that we as instructors often don't realize is the impact we can have with social media. Because if I put up a Facebook post of someone passing their driving test, I'm going to get inquiries off the back of that. It will get likes, it will get comments, that kind of stuff. But if I go and share one of your social media images from Protect Young Drivers, it's going to get very less. It's less likely to get comments, less likely to get engagement. Now, my take on this is people are still going to see it. They're just less likely to engage. Hopefully, there might be one person that sees it and goes, I'm not going to drink and drive today, to use your example before. But I think that I'm guilty of this, and I think a lot of instructors are, of seeing, well, it's not a past picture, it's not getting this public adulation, should we be doing it? So just your thoughts. Can you convince me that it's worth sharing this road safety, the Protect Young Drivers stuff?
Yeah, I think if it's helping us all to look at the bigger picture by getting involved in Protect Young Drivers, because yeah, you're right. If you're an instructor, you're gonna more likely think, oh, I'm gonna put on my past pictures, I'm gonna post what I'm doing today and how many lessons I've done, and I'm gonna do some very sort of natural stuff around my day to day. But if you kind of take a step back and think about why you're in it, in the role that you're in that because you're shaping a safer road user of tomorrow, a safe and competent new young driver of tomorrow. And I think by showing that you get that bigger picture and that you are part of this huge collaborative effort now is really a really strong thing to communicate, because you're showing that you get it, you understand, you've got your eyes open wide to those problems that are out there. That's not to kind of scare people or anything and show that, scaremongering, that, you're not going to want to fill your Facebook with stats about road harm, of course, but to just pepper in occasionally that kind of, this is what I'm part of now. I now support Protect Young Drivers because far too many young people are being killed and injured and are causing collisions mostly through their inexperience on our roads. That's a really strong selling point as an instructor, and certainly any parent looking at your Facebook profile who sees that you get that bigger picture and you want to create safe drivers, I think can only be a good thing. So see it as an opportunity to collaborate, and you might be one instructor, but you could be part of that alongside all of those other big organizations. So there's something in it other than just the safety. There could be lots more opportunity, social media opportunities, publicity opportunities by working with us on this. There'll be events happening in the future at some point you might want to be part of. And so we're only on LinkedIn at the moment. We now have a new LinkedIn page. If you happen to be on LinkedIn, you can check out Protect Young Drivers on there. Very small following at the moment, but please do follow us and share so we can build that up. But in due course, I'd really like to see that roll out across other social media platforms so we can get more and more awareness going about this collaboration and this working together to address this big problem we've got.
Using the word collaboration, and I like it a lot. The other thing just on that for me, there's going to be at least 500 instructors that listen to this. Imagine if 500 instructors start posting this stuff every Monday. The difference that could make, because it's easy to go, just this one person, me doing it, it's not going to have any effect. But that collaboration of 300 to 750 instructors, and then others off the back of that seeing it, that's how you spread a message, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and it'd be great. It would be great if they could do that and see it again as part of that bigger picture. It's a jigsaw puzzle. I always think communications is a jigsaw puzzle. It's how can that organization work with that organization and demonstrate that they're working with that organization, and how we can all work together, show the world. It sounds like slightly cringy kind of cliche, but we are so much stronger together. And although you might post a graphic from Protect Young Drivers thinking, oh, that's only me, but if you're using the hashtag Protect Young Drivers, and so is another instructor, and so are we when we're posting on social media, and so is this MP that now is supporting us. That's another thing we're doing, is we're pushing our MPs to get involved in Protect Young Drivers a bit more, because we need that sort of influence. So if all these different organisations and individuals are in this, then eventually, that jigsaw puzzle kind of effect will reap the benefits, I hope.
Oh, a cringy analogy, but my brain works in pictures and that works beautifully for me. I'm giving you too much praise there. I need to find someone to criticize you for. The website, anyone that goes check it out, I would encourage you to go and check out the timeline. I found that really interesting, just scrolling through that and seeing, I'm not going to go through it all because I think I'd encourage people to look at it, but seeing the massive gaps as well. It's like this thing was done and then there's 30 years before the next thing. It's like, we don't want to wait that long. And I think that's where stuff like Protect Young Drivers and any other of these campaigns, I think they can have that impact of bringing these big gaps shorter, essentially.
And another thing I should say, Terry, actually, sorry to interrupt there, but I think just on the back of what you were saying about what's in it for other people and why we should be getting involved in this, is we also now have a regular news email that goes out every month, and we've got our website news section, and we're always looking for stories to tell around young drivers. So if there's an instructor that's taking part in a particular event or a charity thing or something newsworthy around protecting young drivers, and arguably any sort of driving tuition is protecting young drivers, because that's what it's doing. It's training them to be safe drivers. Let us know about it. So you can sign up again on that Get Involved page on the website. You can sign up to get our updates. So I would definitely recommend people do that. But then you have our contact details from those sign-ups, and you can find it on the website anyway. Drop me a message, and if it's a newsworthy story and it's a story worth telling, we will put that on the website. So, and then you could be linking to that website from your Facebook page saying, look, we're on here because we're doing our bit. So if we start to look at that bigger picture in our day-to-day, I think then we can, it will benefit everybody.
In 2023, I invited you on the podcast for the first time, and it was when I did my road safety series, and the premise was me exploring why there's a gap between instructors in the road safety sector. And since then, you and others have kind of actively been a bit more involved, a bit more looking at the driver training industry. And I think that a lot of instructors struggle to see the benefit of getting involved because we train them pre-test, and the negative ramifications often come post-test. But I think we've explored some of the benefits there, just with the collaboration aspect and making a difference. One of the things that I wanted to put to you was something I consider from the opposite side of the road safety sector looking at us. When you consider something like funding or sponsorship, that demands quite immediate results.
Yes.
And with driver training and instructors, you're not going to get immediate results. If you put all your, if the road safety sector as a whole could wave a magic wand and we say, right, you're going to put 90% of your focus on instructor training, on driver training now, we wouldn't see the benefits of that for years. You could potentially say it would actually be the best thing to do. But the sponsors, the funding, the people, government grants, all this stuff, they won't see those immediate results. Do you think that's part of the reason why more doesn't come towards the driver training side?
I still am scratching my head really as to why we haven't worked together more actively. In the whole time I've worked in road safety, I don't remember a time where we've done any extensive project with driving instructors and at all as a whole or as individuals. I just don't know of a time, and I honestly don't know why we've been so short-sighted about it. And I think there's more of a opportunity here now. Now we've got our road safety strategy. Now we're really being encouraged to look at what is needed to deliver those very ambitious targets that we've now got in terms of casualty reduction, 65% reduction in road death and serious injury by 2035. So nine years we've got to make a huge difference. This whole this collaboration word I seem to have used a lot in this conversation. It's now is the time, and now this is an opportunity for instructors to get involved specifically through protecting young drivers, but obviously they should be part of the whole conversation around road safety. It's so crazy to think that we've not brought them in, and I have to say, I think it was for the road safety community to bring the instructors in, not necessarily the other way around. I think I think that is how it should have happened, and it never did, and I don't know why. And I think it'd be great to think that's changing now, and certainly things that you're doing, Terry, and have been doing for the last number of years, are all really helping so much in that, and sort of breaking down that kind of like, you're sort of like bringing us together, little by little. I think the word's getting out, and people are getting in touch. And I think if we can find ways of doing that more and more going forward, then we'll be working together as we always should have been.
Hello, my name is Stuart Lockery. I'm the founder at Bright Coaching. Driving instruction has changed. Today's learners need more than just skills and practice and reps to pass a driving test. They need coaching that addresses the higher levels of the GDE on every single lesson. That's why we created the Professional Diploma in Coaching and Behavioural Change for Safe Driving. This accredited qualification, equivalent to a BTEC Professional Award Level 4-5, gives you the tools and recognition to transform the way you teach. With Bright Coaching, you can leave the DVSA behind and step into a modern, learner-focused approach, one that shifts the paradigm of driver education for instructors, for pupils, and for parents all across the country. At Bright Coaching, we are training the next generation of driving instructors. To check availability for our online cohorts and in-person cohorts, please visit the website at brightcoaching.net, and you can also sign up to our mailing list where you'll be informed of all the latest early bird discounts as they become available.
Worried about your Part 3 or standards check? Can't seem to get it right? Knowledgeable Instructor Training have the kit that you need. Classroom-based CCL workshops, our 2-day in-car rescue kit, and our video hub are specifically designed to not only help you to pass the tests, but to also give you what you need to deliver great CCL lessons. Whatever it is that is the missing bit, Knowledgeable Instructor Training has the kit for you.
Love that you said that, and not putting a bit of the onus on the road safety sector to bring us in, but I think that sometimes you just have to be a bit of a dick and shoehorn your way into stuff, which is essentially what I've done. And when I look at where our industry, our profession is now, we've got the ADI&JC as a member of PACS, which is phenomenal. I look at the work Kate Monk's doing with My Learner Driver. I look at the Honest Truth and the more and more instructors getting involved in that. I look at things like James Lucas' podcast, which annoyingly I've just completely forgot the name of. He's going to kill me for. But yeah, I look at that, and he invites driving instructors on there, to come and spread the word there. And it's just lovely seeing that some people are shoehorning themselves in, but also, as you just mentioned, that road safety world is inviting us in more now, which is great. We're seeing more instructors at things like the Young Driver Focus. The Young Driver Focus, which is who teaches young drivers? It's instructors. We're seeing more people at Road Safety GB conferences, stuff like that. And we've got businesses to run. We can't all attend there. I don't pretend we should. But I'm loving seeing that come through. But you mentioned there again the minimum learning period with the road safety strategy. And that kind of brings us back to the GDL aspect, the graduated driver licensing. And you mentioned it going on in Ireland. It can only have a positive effect. And it's next door. That's us. Do you think that this is increasing our chances of potentially getting graduated driver license further down the line?
Personally, I'd like to think so, but and it's good to have that kind of thought for the future in our minds and that aim and our objective. But I think we need to kind of break this down into stages. And I think the first stage is that consultation, a minimum learning period that has been proposed by the government. We need to respond to that. And I would say driving instructors should be top of the list to respond to that. They're best placed to respond. When I respond, the deadline is not until the 11th of May. When I finalise my response, I'll be running it past a driving instructor because I'm not best placed to make that judgment. I'm not a driving instructor. I don't know about how long, and it sounds like a great thing having a limited, having a minimum period of which you've got to learn over. But having spoken to people like Kate Monk, and other driving instructors have said things like, well, maybe time doesn't really mean a lot. What about how many hours that actually is and what sort of quality time has been spent learning in that time, and what's to stop somebody kind of just doing it all, cramming it all in one go, and sort of it's got to be more about more than just thinking about time, because on the surface it sounds like a great idea, but again, as instructors, you are the best placed people to respond to that. And PACTS is currently putting together some template suggested responses to the consultation based on lots and lots of feedback from experts in our industry who they've sought the opinions of, and that has all been put together, and that will soon be made available to anybody who wants it. And I'll be ensuring that Protect Young Drivers promotes that through email and through, putting on the website and the news section and things like that. So again, please go to the website and check that out. If you haven't responded yet, I would probably urge you perhaps to wait until you've seen that. And then obviously coupled with your own expert insight and knowledge about how this works, perhaps use some of the suggested bigger picture stuff around young driver risk and the statistics and stuff that will be in there that you can add into your response. And, I think we're going to be much stronger doing that. Again, working together, collaborating, looking at this as that big problem that we've all got a role to solve. Sorry, I think I've digressed there and went off totally on a tangent, but I think the consultation is so important to driving instructors, and it'd be great if they could respond.
I mean, I agree, and it's frustrating because you mentioned the time element of it there. There's the 6-month potential learning period, and it's what that entails. Is it 2 months of extra mock test routes? Well, if it is, it's pointless. Yes, you'll get a bit of experience, but maybe there's a way to have 2 months of work on motorways and those extreme rural roads, whatever else it might be. So, yeah, it's how that is used, I think, is going to be massive. So, yeah, I'll put that in the episode notes as well so people can respond to the consultation, but also, like you said, maybe wait until that information comes out from PACS, because I wasn't aware of that. So that's useful. But I think I want to ask you one final question about graduated driving license, which is, should we still be talking about it? The government have kind of outright said we're not doing this. Now, this government may have done 1 or 2 U-turns. So, you never know. But should we stop talking about graduated licenses, or should it still be part of the conversation?
I think it should definitely be part of the conversation, because I say personally, and a lot of people personally very much want a graduated driving licensing system based on the evidence, based on all the research, based on what's happened in other countries. And obviously bereaved families, campaigning families want that. So many people support it. So we definitely shouldn't lose sight of that. If that's what we truly believe, we should definitely stick with that. However, I think it's just the way that we communicate about that. I think it's the way that we talk about it just needs to shift slightly. And if you go on the website, protectyoungdrivers.com, you will see it has a section on graduated driving licensing, but the facts speak for themselves. It is all about presenting the evidence and the facts. And you can't argue with the fact that there's been huge reductions in other countries. And when you look at the process for young drivers by country, you see there's just a small entry for Britain and what we do here. And then you go on and you look at Australia. This is what a driver has to go through, all the different stages of learning that they have to go through before they become a fully fledged driver, as it were. And there's a huge process that they're having to go through in these other countries. And just on the surface, that just why it just looks like we need to do more. We've got a problem with young driver crashes, but we're not doing enough. So I think what we're now saying is, we hear you. The government has said no to GDL. However, we still firmly believe in it, and we firmly believe in the need to protect young drivers, to do more, whatever that looks like, to better protect young drivers. And the minimum learning period is a fantastic, very welcome inclusion in the road safety strategy. However, the evidence we have shows it's not going to make enough of a difference to really reduce casualties amongst that group. So what else can we do on top of that to help reduce deaths and injuries and to help them meet that overall target of a 65% reduction in deaths and serious injuries overall that we need to achieve in 9 years? I mean, we looked at the start of this call, we talked about it being 24% of all fatal and serious collisions are involving 17 to 24-year-olds. If we did have something which would hugely reduce that would be that would go such a long way towards that 65% reduction, wouldn't it? Yeah. So it's how we talk about it. Doesn't mean we don't support GDL. It just means we want to talk about the need to do more to protect young drivers. We want to work with government. We all want to work together, and we're here. We're ready, and we're here, ready to help.
I want to take just a little bit of a detour, because at the start of this year, Road Peace, the road safety charity, closed their doors. Road Peace are no more. And you spent a chunk of time working with and for Road Peace. So I don't know, I felt like I just wanted to ask you just to share a few thoughts about maybe the work Road Peace did, but also just on what occurred.
Yeah, very, very, very sad. Over 30 years in existence as a charity, supported so many bereaved families, helped so many families campaign for justice and campaign for change around acceptance around road harm, challenging society's acceptance. They did so much good and were an amazing charity. And it was a real shock and surprise to learn that they were closing. And my first thought was how sad that is for most importantly, the families that they support, but also the staff and volunteers who've given an awful lot of their time and energy and commitment. A charity like that, it's not just a job, it's part of who you are, it's something you're very passionate and committed to. And I think, that was suddenly really sad to learn that had gone. And I do feel for the people who suddenly don't have road peace to turn to. And as we know, road crashes are happening every day, and more people are needing support, and they suddenly don't have that anymore. But there are other charities out there who can help, but it was such a dreadful shame to learn that Road Peace wouldn't be doing that anymore, because they've done such a tremendous job for so many years.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for joining me today. Do you want to take a moment? In fact, no, the question I started asking people, I didn't warn you with this, is what's the one thing you would like people to take away from this episode?
I'm going to end on togetherness. I think if we could take one thing away from this, it would be the need for togetherness on young driver safety. Young driver tuition, it's togetherness, and that togetherness is so much wider than an instructor or even a group of instructors. It's instructors working alongside road safety professionals, talking, pick up the phone, email, chatting, talking, building rapport with people, both sides, but togetherness and collaboration. Yet again, I'll mention that word, Terry.
We said this recently somewhere else. I'm going to repeat it. In Billy Connolly tells a story of when he got his belly button pierced. The guy that did it turned around and said, "That's one less of them and one more of us." And that's always in my head now. Whenever someone starts coaching or embraces clients that are learning or embraces Vision Zero, it's one less of them and one more of us. And I think that's good. All right, do you want to take a moment just to remind people where they can find you if they want more Rebecca goodness?
Please come to protectyoungdrivers.com. And if you go to the Get Involved page, you will see there's a few ways you can get involved. And one of those ways is getting in touch. So you'll find my contact details on there. So please, if anybody has any questions or wants to get involved in this work that we've been talking about, please just drop me an email.
Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you ever so much.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.